Chapter 1. The affordability of healthcare. We start with the single heaviest burden for the vast majority of the country: the cost of staying alive. In the United States, getting sick is not just a medical issue, it is a financial catastrophe. Even for the millions of Americans who pay for health insurance every month, the out-of-pocket costs remain staggering. High deductibles, hidden emergency room fees, and the highest prescription drug prices in the world force people into impossible choices. A single vial of insulin can cost over $300 without good insurance. Basic emergency treatments like an EpiPen can push past $600. Every day, individuals are deciding whether to stretch their medicine, skip a doctor's visit, or pay their rent. It is a system where world-class medical technology exists, but accessing it can mean instant bankruptcy. Chapter 2. Inflation and the cost of living. And that rent is higher than ever. The compounded inflation of the 2020s has fundamentally eroded the purchasing power of the middle class. While politicians point to cooling inflation rates, prices at the ground level have not dropped. They have just stopped rising as fast. The cost of absolute necessities like groceries, electricity, and basic services now consumes a massive percentage of the average paycheck. A standard carton of eggs can push past $4. A pound of regular ground beef often costs around $6. A simple gallon of milk is nearing $4 to $5 in many states. These small, everyday price tags create a relentless month-to-month financial anxiety. People are working the exact same hours in the exact same jobs, but finding themselves with less and less to show for it at the end of the month. Chapter 3. The role of money in politics. When citizens look to their government to fix these economic pressures, they hit a brick wall. Across the entire political spectrum, voters are united by one major frustration: the belief that their voices simply do not matter anymore. Thanks to massive loopholes in campaign finance laws, billionaires, massive corporations, and specialized lobbying groups pump billions of dollars into the political system. The average voter feels completely drowned out. There is a deep prevailing cynicism that laws are written to protect the profit margins of special interest groups, rather than the well-being of the people who actually elected the politicians. Chapter 4. Political dysfunction and polarization. This disconnect has resulted in total political dysfunction. The two major political parties are trapped in a cycle of extreme polarization, focused entirely on destroying the opposition rather than governing. This constant gridlock means real problems go entirely unaddressed. But the damage isn't just in Washington. This hyper-partisanship, fueled by a 24/7 news cycle and social media algorithms, has bled into everyday life. It is straining personal relationships, dividing families, and creating a society that is exhausted, angry, and deeply pessimistic about the future of the country. Chapter 5. Violent crime and the opioid epidemic. While the government remains paralyzed, communities are dealing with immediate threats to their physical safety. The opioid epidemic, now driven heavily by lethal synthetic fentanyl, is ravaging both cities and rural towns alike. It is a public health nightmare that has overwhelmed local emergency responders. Combine this with persistent anxieties about localized violent crime, property theft, and the unique ongoing threat of gun violence in public spaces, and you have a population on edge. For many Americans, a baseline level of hypervigilance has simply become a normal part of going to the mall, a concert, or sending their kids to school. Chapter 6. The federal budget deficit. Behind these visible community crises lies an invisible economic time bomb: the national debt. For decades, the federal budget deficit was treated as an abstract talking point. Today, it is a glaring reality. The United States is trillions of dollars in debt, and the interest payments alone are consuming a massive portion of the national budget. Americans are increasingly disturbed by what this means for their future. The deficit guarantees long-term economic instability, threatening to trigger massive tax hikes and endangering vital safety nets like Medicare and Social Security, just as an entire generation prepares to retire. Chapter 7. Housing unaffordability. But for younger generations, retirement is an afterthought when they can barely afford a place to live today. driven by a severe shortage of available homes, historically high interest rates, and massive Wall Street firms buying up single-family properties. Home ownership has become a luxury item. The traditional milestone of buying a starter home has vanished. Instead, millions of Americans are trapped in a vicious cycle of renting. The national average rent for a standard one-bedroom apartment now sits around $1,700 a month. In many major cities, that number pushes well past $2,500 just for a basic place to live. Renters are facing aggressive year-over-year price hikes from landlords. The housing market is no longer a path to building wealth, it is an impenetrable fortress. Chapter 8: Illegal Immigration and Border Security. As domestic resources stretch thin, the logistical strain of managing the U.S. border has become a highly visible crisis. While the political solutions are fiercely debated, the reality on the ground is undeniable. The sheer volume of illegal immigration has overwhelmed the system. Immigration courts are backed up for years, and border facilities are pushed past their limits. This strain isn't confined to the southern border. The logistical and financial burden of housing and processing migrants has spilled over into major cities thousands of miles away, straining local municipal budgets and essential social services. Chapter 9: Climate Change and Extreme Weather Simultaneously. The physical landscape of the country is fighting back. Climate change has officially moved from a theoretical warning to a daily, highly expensive reality. Americans are facing more frequent and destructive wildfires, unprecedented hurricanes, and lethal heat waves. But beyond the physical danger, extreme weather is collapsing local economies. In heavily impacted regions, property insurance premiums have skyrocketed by hundreds of %. In some states, major insurance companies are simply pulling out entirely, leaving homeowners completely exposed to total financial ruin. Chapter 10: Unemployment and Job Security. Finally, there is the changing nature of how Americans earn a living. The official unemployment rate often looks stable on paper, but the reality on the ground is deep underlying anxiety. The unspoken contract between employer and employee is broken. Massive corporate downsizing, the shift toward unstable gig economy labor without benefits, and the rapid, unpredictable integration of artificial intelligence into white-collar professions mean that almost no one feels secure. The idea of a stable 30-year career is dead. Workers are navigating an economy that views them as entirely disposable. Which of these 10 issues affects your life the most? The concept of a stable 30-year career has effectively been rendered obsolete, as workers must now navigate an economy that increasingly treats labor as a disposable commodity. Let us know in the comments.